In the past few weeks, we've seen some pretty shocking examples of eminent people and leaders right across the Western world outright refusing to define what a woman is. First, it was the UK Labor leader Sir Keir Starmer. Then it was Joe Biden's Supreme Court nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
The meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
And yesterday, well, it was a scientist, the Secretary of the Department of Health here in Australia, former Chief Medical Officer Professor Brendan Murphy. Have a look at this exchange with Liberal Senator from South Australia, Alex Antic.
It's a very contested space at the moment, Senator.
It's not just a woman who's born a woman.
But there are definitions in terms of how people identify themselves. So we're happy to provide our working definition on those.
One of the, I've only been here 2 years. That's the best thing I've seen thus far. Thank you so much.
Senator Alex Antic joins me now from Canberra. Senator, you know, Ketanji Brown Jackson, she sort of squibbed it. She said, I'm not a biologist, I'm a lawyer. Brendan Murphy, the CMO, the former Chief Medical Officer there, is a man of science. He's a medical doctor. If he can't define a woman biologically, I mean, it's pretty simple and black and white, there's a lot more at play here then.
Yeah, look, Peter, I think that's right. And to, you know, to give him some of his dues, I suspect, and I'm putting words in his mouth here, I suspect that he probably would share a very similar view to the definition of a woman that you and I would both characterise in, that is one who is born that way. But I think what this really does is it bells the cat for how far this radical gender theory has seeped into our institutions, and now even the health department, because really I think what we were seeing there was almost Professor Murphy looking over his shoulder and wondering where the hit squad would come from if he told us what we know to be true.
Spot on.
This is the problem here. I think it's endemic in our institutions, and by the way, it's not limited only to the health department. A few days earlier, asked the Workplace Gender Equality Agency the same question, and was given the rounds of the kitchen, really told that, you know, we use the definition that companies use and that the ABS uses. And even today, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade told me that they would also take it on notice. So that's the story out of this. It's not the individual's response so much, Peter, it's the fact that it's endemic in our institutions.
So he said, Professor Murphy, and I think you're absolutely right on his personal view, it was a contested idea. Now, I don't think anyone watching at home would say it's a contested idea. I don't think most Australians would. The Prime Minister has the biological definition of women. The opposition leader, at least this side of an election, has the same view, the Oxford Dictionary view, which is pretty straightforward. So how is it that the bureaucrats in Canberra have a different view? I mean, who is the monkey? Who is the organ grinder here? Because if we're electing politicians on something as fundamental as how they view men and women, how on earth is the public service allowed to have, you know, this huge bracket creep, this contested idea that's different than those we elect?
Yeah, and look, it's a good point. And in fact, that was one of the issues raised with the Workplace Equality Agency, was that I was told originally they didn't have a definition for woman, but in actual fact, they did have a statutory definition. There's one in the Act, and it's a reasonable definition of female born a female. So, I think that is the point. And really, I mean, I'm not one for extra legislation, regulation, and that's like fingernails down a blackboard for me, but it does cry out for reform. I mean, I think if our bureaucracy can't sit there and tell us what a woman is, then, maybe it is time for legislative intervention. There is a standard uniform definition of a woman in this country, and that it affects, all of our acts, the Acts Interpretation Act or something like that. But certainly, I think Conservatives need to muscle up on this as well. I mean, I've got to pay tribute to my colleague, Senator Claire Chandler, who's done a power of work in this area and presently has the Save Women's Sport bill before the Parliament, which I believe the Prime Minister supports. I don't know if that's a government bill yet, but they're the sort of courageous actions that need to be taken here in order to push back, because the sky doesn't fall in when you tell the truth, Peter.
All strength to your arm, Senator Antic. You're right, Claire Chandler's been amazing. She's often on this program, but I think you've been pretty brave the last 24 hours. I'm sure your inbox and your Twitter handle's full of hate, but keep it up. Keep it up.